Good evening. I'm Ken Demers for Psychic Holistic Spotlight. This is the start of our 27th year. Tonight, our guest is Roland Comtois. With me is Josie Way and Kathleen Medeiros. And we are going to talk about, what did you call it?
Everything?
No, what your big program that you do? Beyond Grief? Living Beyond Grief.
Loss. Living Beyond Loss.
Living Beyond
Loss.
Loss.
It's in its 10th year. It's an event where people can come and receive support and healing. I have 65 volunteers who offer their services, who are there to offer Reiki and therapeutic support, energy support, all kinds of things.
Where do you do
How
it?
How big is this?
Well, it's, we get a couple of hundred people who come, and it's started in Woonsocket, Rhode Island 10 years ago, and it is coming back to Rhode Island for our 10th anniversary, which is in April of 2016. We went off into Connecticut for a little while, and we drew a big crowd there, but something was telling me it needs to stay in Rhode Island, and so we're going to come back to Rhode Island this year and offer this program, for people to come in and really learn about healing, learn about living through loss, because that's not an easy task.
No.
And we have speakers which are exceptional, who have gone through loss themselves, some of them, and some very wonderful psychotherapists who believe in the alternative therapies such as mediumship and energy work. So all kinds of things are going on during that day. All kinds of things.
And where will it be held?
It'll be in Rhode Island. The location, I don't know exactly yet, but it'll
Still
be
to be determined.
Yeah, it's still to be determined. But all that information will be on my website, and you can get tickets, which are last year I think they were $5. Some voice in my head many years ago said, "Do this and help people," and I said, "Well, who's going to help pay for it?" And that big voice said, "You." And I said, "Okay, fine, I'll do it. Whatever
Surprise.
you say." Yeah, surprise.
Just so people understand, this is the third in a series of 3. Roland will probably, with luck, Roland will be back with us next year. But if you think you've already seen this show, you probably haven't, because it's new.
That's an interesting point, because I was thinking, I've been coming here for a while now, is there really a new story to tell? But the fact of the matter is, there's always a story to tell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not only is there a story to tell, but there is the discussion about love. There's a discussion about grief and healing. There's discussions that we can have about the afterlife. What does it look like? What does it feel like? We can all do all kinds of things when we come together here.
Yeah, and about your international travels and helping people all around the world learn about this.
Can I just tell you the story?
We love stories.
I've mentioned this before. I did my first international presentation in Ireland some years ago. My second one was in England, and I happened to be there the day that the Iceland volcano erupted. So I got trapped there in England with a bunch of other people, and that was my second. And this year, 2015, I was in Italy, and I had some of the most amazing and extraordinary spiritual moments that you could possibly imagine. I came face to face with St. Francis, face to face with energy that I hadn't felt before. But what I was going to and getting to was, I did a small event there in Gubbio, Italy, a town that's walled, built centuries ago. Knights and kings have walked their land. And there I am in this hotel, in this small little town, getting ready to give messages to people. One side of the room were the Italians. On the other side of the room were the Americans. And at some point during the experience...
And one interpreter.
Thank you. And one interpreter. So I would say, "Your mother's is here," and she'd say, "Blah, da, 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 da." And I'd say something else, and the interpreter, we had that kind of a communication. But something very extraordinary and amazing happened in that room. And it wasn't that I gave a profound message. It wasn't. I give nice messages. It wasn't that something amazing happened. It was the coming together of people from different lives, from different belief systems, came together and had a very healthy conversation about signs and messages, and it was so incredible. One of the fathers who lost his son very tragically came up to me very quietly like this. He didn't really want anyone to hear what was going on, and he says, "You know those 3 words you said to me? I don't even remember what they were." He said, "I can have peace now." Even the Italians and the Irish and the English, all of us want peace about loss. And here was this one guy who wasn't going to express it all.
He was Italian?
He was Italian, lived in Gubbio, just wanted some peace. And somehow at the end of our little tiny conversation, he had a moment of peace that was quite profound.
Probably an epiphany.
Probably.
Something.
Okay. Did any of the antique residents step through?
Antique residents.
I don't know what you want to call them.
That's a good one, Ken.
Well, it's an ancient town.
I love that. You know, I felt a lot of energy. I walked the streets of Assisi, almost blindly walking to places I never knew where I would go. We walked out of the St. Francis Church in Assisi. Walked out, there are multiple floors, and we were in the bottom floor where St. Francis's body is supposedly. And so I walk out of there and I hear in my head, "Go right." I don't even know why, but I follow it.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm walking the cobblestones of Assisi, and I look back to a group of people that are with me and I say, "Follow the birds. Follow the birds."
Oh, my
And I
goodness.
continue to walk up this hill. I'm sweating. It was warm, actually. It was overwhelming, but I'm walking up this hill. I didn't feel like myself for some reason. And I'm walking, and I look back to the group, and I say, "Follow the birds." That's all I say to them. We get up to near the top of this hill, and there is a wall with little indentations where birds have made their nests. And in that moment, I heard, "This is where you belong." We ended up at the church where St. Francis disrobed and became one with God, became one with his spiritual mission.
Like in a form of enlightenment?
Yes, it's where he made a decision to take a step towards his belief somehow. And through some very extraordinary moment, we ended up at that church. We ended up there. I didn't know the name of the church. I didn't know where we were going, but we climbed a hill, a cobblestone street, and ended up in this amazing and incredible place.
Do you feel it was St. Francis that was guiding you?
Totally. Absolutely. I mean,
With
I've
the
got
birds?
stories that would take more than the half hour that
The
we have
birds were
together.
pigeons?
Not all pigeons.
Doves?
Doves, pigeons, and there was one other bird that I didn't recognize, but they were magnificent. Can I tell you another story?
Yes, please.
We went to Spoleto, Italy, and this is where,
How do you get in these obscure places?
well, I have a team of people that help me get there, right? I have we led a group of people on a tour, and it's an annual thing that we do now, and we go to Italy, and we'll go to other places. But the fact is, we went to Spoleto, and it's a place where St. Francis went into the caves and did his prayer and healing and meditations. The second we walk up to the top of this magnificent mountain that overlooked town after town, a flock of thousands of birds appeared, not just to me, to everybody that was on top of this mountain at the same time. It was mind-boggling on every level, but they appeared there. So we went from town to town, met some extraordinary people, incredible people. I got to talk about this one guy, this taxi driver, right? He said, "I'm going to take you someplace special." So we went to the Hermitage where St. Francis did a lot of his things, a lot of his prayers and meditation. And you had to walk down a flight of stairs and around a bend to get to another sacred sanctuary. Now, I was a little claustrophobic, so I was a little overwhelmed. And this Italian man in his Italian language said to me, "Take my arm, I've got you."
He could sense your anxiety, I guess.
yes.
Wasn't that amazing? You know, again, it's all about different people of different beliefs, of different understandings, and different experiences all coming together for that one moment, and it was very powerful. It was life-changing again. So I love those trips and those tours, and I don't even know how we started on that, Josie.
I started it.
You started something, I don't know
Yeah.
what, but
Well,
Yeah.
you know, one
I
thing,
saw some photos from your journeys in Italy that you posted on Facebook
okay,
about
yes.
the cliffs and stuff.
Yes.
I couldn't believe that you did that.
I couldn't believe I did it either, but it was just spectacular on every level. There was a spirituality to the experience, right? I mean, it was called the Roland Comtois Spiritual and Cultural Experience, but it was really drenched in some amazing spirituality. Not Catholicism, but spirituality as a whole that, you know, again, if you open your heart and your mind to the possibilities, then everything and anything is within your grasp.
now, I'm not sure, but I would suspect that some of those Italians were probably Roman Catholic.
Oh, most of them, you know, most of them.
How did they accept this type of happening?
Well, so, you know, again, in this room of Italians on one side and the
Yeah.
Americans on the other side, the Americans were the group of people that traveled with me. So I was focused on these Italian folks. Other than one woman came up to me after, and she's standing there and she's sobbing, and I'm holding her hand and I'm saying, but I want to talk to you about your father. And she understands bits and pieces of English, and I go on to describe to her the journey of her father's last 4 days. She said to a T. At that moment, we weren't a Roman Catholic and a Christian or whomever or whatever.
Yeah.
We were two people standing side by side, supporting each other. And I went on to tell her the entire story, and all she did was cry in the arms of her friend that was there because she had a moment of peace. So I don't think we were defined by the religion at that moment.
Well,
You know what I mean?
they're kind of resistant
Well-
to anything that's not part of.
No doubt about it. Can I say something though? When I got out of that presentation and I finished it, I was thinking the same thing, that I'm doomed here in Italy. I don't really fit here. I was thinking my ways of thinking just don't seem to fit here. The next morning I go downstairs. Everyone that worked at this hotel wanted me to sign my autograph, and so I gave everybody there who worked there my books that I had carried with me as a gift. And they just received my books, and that was the end of it. So there were people very much on board, just like here. There were people totally against it, just like here.
Okay.
And there were people right in the middle, just like here. Wasn't much different at all, actually.
Well, the next time you go, just remember one thing.
Yes.
Have a pigeon, help clean up the city, have a pigeon for lunch.
Oh, come on. Oh, my God.
All the birds, you know.
You just went in the wrong direction.
Yes.
I'm perverted, what can I say?
You went in the wrong direction.
That's not peaceful.
Well, yeah, but somebody's got to, they make a mess.
So,
Well, old
going-
cities, that birds have had to adapt because we've taken up all their
Yeah, I know.
Space.
Space.
That's for sure.
So they've adapted marvelously.
Yes, they have.
Now, going back to your event that you had once a year in April,
Yes.
how did you get into that event?
Well, you know, again, it started because there was that voice inside of my head that said, there's a lot of people who need help, but they can't afford to pay a ticket price. They can't afford to do this, so why don't you just do it for them? And so I then called friends of mine and said, I'm doing this thing, but you have to do it for free. And then I called 65 friends of mine, and by the time we're now in our 10th year, everybody wants to help, everybody wants to be of support, and you know, some very amazing moments come out of that. I remember
I'd volunteer for that.
then I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you for that. I remember being in Stamford, Connecticut, and there was a woman there. She was bringing her 3 sons to this thing. They had never had an experience like this before, and she had no idea what she was going to do for them. She understood what I did, but they were 10, 12, and 9 or something like this. And by the time they were done, having whatever experiences they had, there was so much peace, there was so much ease inside of them about the loss of their father. You know, I certainly believe that kids grieve differently than we grieve. They see things differently than we do, and we were able to help them in some way. And so that's a great question. Thanks for asking that.
It's tough for children to deal with grief because they don't completely understand
No, they
what's going
don't.
on.
And parents don't think they're grieving because they'll be playing for 10 minutes.
That's a great point.
And then they'll be grieving.
You're
and
right.
then they'll be playing. So they sometimes you don't even see that they're grieving.
You know, I had the same experiences in my own grief. Sometimes you're fine and sometimes you're not.
Right.
But with a kid, you can't always see that. You can't always feel that or hear that. And so giving them some tools to navigate their grief and giving them the opportunity to share what they're feeling about the person that's passed, I think it's really critically important.
Yeah. Okay. And when you work with a group of people who are specialists, they can reach out and help.
Yeah.
Because they see the signs so much better and easier.
Yes.
And then we're just that, medium, that in between, to help with that, the crossing over the two different worlds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go back to one of my original questions.
Yes.
Did any of the old residents of the city come through at all?
Well,
or just current?
No, there were, so if you're asking me about kings and queens that have walked that place before, I can tell you that when I went into Montepulciano, which is a little bit north of Gubbio, we went into the city. You had to drive up this humongous mountain. As we were driving it up, my hair was starting to stand. I knew that I would come across some spirits that had been there, people that had lived there thousands of years ago. So we get to the top of the hill, top of the mountain actually, and they're doing a movie. They're filming a movie there, and Al Pacino was doing a movie there, and they were shooting something for one of the TV networks. I got out of off the bus and started to walk this city, and it was like I could see people who had lived there before. I could see them moving and walking, and then we go to our hotel, which had been owned by the same family for 5 generations. We walk in there, and I know it sounds crazy to say, certainly, but it was like I could see the ancients and the ancestors who had walked there before.
That's what I was curious
Yeah, it was
about.
so amazing. It really was pretty incredible to see them all there.
What the dress is what I'm kind of trying to ask. Would they be in the old-fashioned dress?
Yes.
Or the more, okay.
Yeah, they would look like
In
they
their
were
time.
of their time. You know, they weren't dressed in anything I was wearing, for sure.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't want to.
No, that's for sure.
I'm not-
They wouldn't want to.
No, it's
They
all.
wouldn't want to wear what I wear. You're right. You've got a good point there. My daughter says the same thing to me, but that's okay. That's for another story.
No, I'm not.
I'm only kidding. But the fact is, they looked like they did. You know.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when I'm channeling a message for a loved one or someone here, and their loved one comes to me. Well, they come to me in the way that they were, the way that they were dressed, maybe, the way that they looked, the way that they sounded, the way their mannerisms were. That same kind of thing applied there.
Do you have any idea of the age of the oldest spirit that ever came through to you?
That's a nice question. That's a good question, Ken. I can tell you
By
probably
appearance.
about 1,000 or 1,500 years.
Oh, fairly new.
Fairly new. Often I see ancient people, but to go to that ancient space, you got to get in the zone, really. When I walk into an audience of people, they're not interested generally in the ancient ancestors. They're interested in mom, dad, and whomever else has recently
Right.
passed. They're not as on board about going as far back, which is fine. I respect that and honor that.
I guess listening to you say that, the question that pops, or getting off your subjects, but the question that pops into our mind is, what message would somebody from 2,000 years ago want to say to us?
This is an excellent question. Wouldn't they want to say the same thing we've been striving for for 2,000 years, 5,000 years, wouldn't they want to say the same thing? Every single message, by the way, from whatever place it came from, is laced with love and energy. It's about standing strong, standing firm, standing together. It's not any different, honestly, than the messages for 2016. Stand united. I've been hearing it.
In keeping with your unconditional love carrying over, the longest distance back that I ever got was about 200 million years ago.
Wow.
And it was from my parents of that time.
Wow.
And he was bringing, well, there's more to it than that. We saw him in the clouds when we were driving up to the church. And then when we got to the church, Verlene Eldridge says, I have a message from an ET. He says, you saw him in the clouds.
Wow.
And we did. But that's like 200 million years
we can
ago.
go back. We could go back very far. But the truth of the matter is, the people in my audiences don't want to go that far.
No.
Yeah, no,
They want to
it's
talk
just
about
curiosity.
Yeah, but certainly
It's
I
the
have.
recent stuff
Yes.
they want to hear about.
Do people ever ask you to channel famous people?
They have. Yeah, they
You know,
have.
like Christ.
They have. Oh, they have. And I have, but I don't channel celebrities. People call me and say, "You've got anything new from Elvis?" I've got nothing from Elvis. I'm sorry. Please
We
don't
have
call me
someone
about
that does Elvis.
Yeah, that's not me. That's not my gig in life. But the ancestors, these Jesus, and the significant spiritual leaders of their times, all of us could feel. All of
Okay.
us can connect to.
Yeah, the
Particularly
saints.
Christ, I'm interested in. Did you have significant information that doesn't fit with the
Sure.
normal?
Yeah, I would say maybe 12 or 14 years ago, I went under hypnotherapy in a quest to understand my personal connection with Jesus, and why I felt such an infinity, such a something with him. And the message is still, and it may get kind of boring to you and other people, but it always goes back to the essence and the energy of love, and that somewhere along the line the message got broken apart, and that it's our mission to bring the message
Yes.
back.
I like that.
Yeah.
To bring it back. And that's what I know. And I had that experience with that hypnotherapist that was quite profound. And by the time we were done having it, she was crying her eyes out by whatever it is that I was saying to her and whatever it is that we were experiencing together. So I don't channel celebrities, though people have asked me, have you heard from Whitney Houston lately? And I don't. I have celebrity clients that I have that I meet with, but not those that have passed on. I don't get many messages there. It's not where I want to go.
Now, do you find that a lot of the messages, though, it's basically simple?
Yes.
Okay, like love or just be patient.
Yes. Yeah, we are so good at making it complicated. My God, the human spirit is so good at making it complicated.
What I find, I feel that I get most messages are about keeping it simple and focusing on the beauty and the joy in everything that's simple.
I know this. It's true. It's one of the main threads of the message. We're so busy trying to understand every little detail and understanding, why did I just stub my toe? Maybe you just stubbed your toe. Maybe it's not that big of an experience. Maybe it's time to come back to the simplicity of the experience instead of being what we've always, now I can't speak for you, I can only speak for myself, always in this kind of negotiation with it. Just live it. Just be it. Wear it like a cloak and let it change you somehow. Let it change you. So you're right, simplicity is the name of the game. The messages are simple.
Yeah,
Just take it back to unconditional love.
Back to the beginning.
Well, the world is very complicated.
It is.
On one level, we're all connected by internet.
Yes.
On another level, we have all the warring and differences and competitions.
And all of that incites fear. It all incites fear because you have access to all of that information, and you can easily fall into fear, right? If there was a bench a beautiful bench in front of you, and one side said fear, and the other side said love, where would you sit? You'd sit on the love side. That's as simple as it is, right? But we see what happens around the world, and we become distraught by those things that we see. And then we say, why did God do this? Why did the angels do this? Why did our spirits do this? And
Free will.
Yeah, it causes a lot of commotion somehow.
And
A
we're
lot of
always looking
commotion.
for that something more to us, too. Like, there's got to be something more
Yeah,
to
I know.
behind the story.
You're right. Why can't it just be simple?
Yeah.
And, you know, I certainly am the kind of guy that believes everything happens for a reason, but maybe sometimes I just banged my leg, and it doesn't have more of a dramatic story than just banging my leg, right? And maybe that's the gist of it.
We come here for lessons and experiences.
Yes.
And maybe banging your leg is a form of lesson.
It could be.
Be more careful.
It could be that simple. See,
Yeah.
back to simplicity, Ken. Absolutely back to simplicity. You know, we have more power than we want to really acknowledge sometimes.
Because we're part of God.
Because we're part of the whole universal connection. We have more power, and we have more opportunity within us to create, to manifest, to intend change. It's in us. It's in us.
Yep. But so many of us spend too much time focusing on what we don't want
Sure, or what we don't have.
and what we don't have.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
So we've got about 4.5 minutes left. If you were going to tell the average person what procedure they might want to follow to bring more love into their heart, what
Great.
would you suggest?
Well, first I would say stop talking. Stop asking. Stop searching. Because that essence of love is inside of you. Once you stop doing those things, I say sit quietly by yourself in a sacred space somewhere and just be with yourself. Be present for yourself. The next thing I would say is, again, stop asking, because the minute you get quiet, you start asking. You start asking again. You've already asked for help. You've already asked for guidance and support. Just be present. Do this. Put your hands on your heart. Sit quietly. Come into a place of meditation and prayer. Let that be the catalyst that really begins this heart opening. Look, there's something I know here. The second the heart opens, you have a greater access to that universal whole that we are all part of. And the minute you get quiet and settled and open the heart, the more that you have access to, and the more that you
This
can do.
is something that you can physically feel.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ken. When the heart begins to open, there's kind of an energy expansion or a warmth that happens when the heart chakra begins to open itself up. I see it. I see it every day.
Do you see it in people, or do you just sense it?
I see it in people. I sense it in their behaviors. My staff tells me that when they're with me at an event, someone leaves with an open heart because their face is changed. Their tension is gone. There's an ease inside. That's the beginning of opening the heart center. That's the beginning.
I was going to make a suggestion that we have expos in the area, and Roland appears at many of them.
Yes.
You know, come visit Roland
I'd love
at
that.
some of the expos.
So, email address.
So if you want to reach me, you go to my website, blessingsbyroland.com, and check out what's going on. I really want to thank you guys and everybody here at Psychic Holistic Hotline for inviting me for this annual event and this three series. I really appreciate it. So thank you guys
Well,
very much.
And I hope
Thank
we
you.
educate
Thank you for coming.
people.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we're just about finished with this show. We got 2 more minutes. This is our 27th year, and we would welcome suggestions, comments, criticisms, and we would also welcome volunteers. If anybody wants to come and be part of our audience, we got very small audiences, to run a camera, to maybe work in the back room and as director or something.
Okay.
We would welcome volunteers. Basically, we're just trying to educate the public and ourselves.
Yeah.
We get to interview people that have such diverse views, and I hope you enjoy them. If you don't, like a particular subject, talk up. If you want a particular subject, talk up. And Josie's going to give you her phone number.
401-575-6450.
Slower.
401-575-6450. And if there's any subject that you don't like one week, check us out the next week.